the shooting range. In this episode, pages of history, much ado about trainer jets, battle pass, completing new season tasks, and metal beasts, a tank out of smoke. Our show features lots of Abrams, Leopard, and T-80 tanks, but there's more vehicles at high ranks, even if in smaller numbers. Let's focus on one of those other tanks today. Please welcome an Israeli main battle tank, the Merkava Siman 3 Raam Segol. One of the most notable features of Israeli machines is their layout, with the engine compartment in the front instead of the usual rear. The Merkava can boast a gasoline heart with 1,200 horsepower. The resulting mobility isn't too impressive since the vehicle has a mass of 65 tons, but it's not the worst either. It's usually good enough to keep up with the main advance force of your team. Just leave the bypass routes to your more agile allies. The reverse isn't too shabby either. 26 kilometers an hour allows you to roll back after a shot or do a quick retreat if combat gets too hot. In the case of the latter, you'll also enjoy a record number of smoke grenades. There's a whopping 58 of them. How about a part-time position as a smokescreen layer? Now, the Merkava's protection level is questionable. We can't call it reliable since most of its survivability comes from the massive size in the engine compartment in the front of the hull. Sometimes the tank can surprise you by soaking up shell after shell, but don't try to rely on this, since there's always a chance of being knocked out after a single hit. It's better to avoid unnecessary exposure. We should also note that the frontal position of the engine forces you to expose the entire hull in some positions, which can be an issue. The tank is armed with a classic caliber for the class, a 120mm cannon with elevation angles between -7 and +20 degrees. Its main shell is a fin-stabilized, discarding sabot that can penetrate almost 600mm of armor up close. It's good enough to damage any target via vulnerabilities, or even elsewhere at times. You can enhance the ammo pool with proximity fuse high-explosive rounds. They're useful against lightly armored ground vehicles and helicopters hovering far away. The laser rangefinder will set the proximity fuse automatically, so you won't even need to land a direct hit. As for the rest, the Merkava is a classic MBT, equipped with everything you might need in a high-rank battle. Learning your way around it is a sure way to score numerous victories. The very first days of the Vietnam War provided a major insight. Sophisticated high-speed jets are too expensive and inefficient in dense, hot combat. What the armed forces required was a multi-role aircraft. It could be subsonic, but it needed to be low maintenance, cheap, and easy to master. And while both the Soviet Union and the United States eventually created the not-so-cheap Su-25 and A-10 to fit the bill, many other nations decided to focus on simplicity. The resulting solution was the concept of a light attack aircraft. All that was left to do was to decide on whether it should be based on existing concepts or designed from scratch. Sweden put the matter to rest with their Saab 105. But soon after that, a new competition sparked up among the European aviation industries. The British Hawker Company started by claiming they could supply the entirety of Europe with such an aircraft. The French Dassault didn't hesitate with a response of their own. "No, we will create this plane. Your CP4 heavy attack aircraft project was enough." Then, a third side joined in, Germany. They desperately needed a domestically produced update for the Italian Fiat G91. All of a sudden, a message came from the other side of the pond. "Gentlemen, what's the fuss about? The USA can make the best aircraft ever." The result of this commotion was an amazing union of aircraft makers that came as a bombshell. To prevent the Britons from winning the competition, Dassault joined its efforts with Dornier. They managed to fuse two independent projects into one. 1973 saw the maiden flight of the prototype Alpha Jet that boasted the insignia of both the French Armée de l'Air and the German Bundesluftwaffe. 2 years later, these compact two-seater trainers with an impressive choice of suspended armaments joined service in both nations. Watching its allies across the English Channel, Great Britain launched their own flying desk into production, the Hawker Siddeley Hawk. They vowed to win this honest competition against the French and the Germans. The history of the ensuing market fight between the Alpha Jet and the Hawk deserves a whole book of its own. Meanwhile, the American companies could only throw jealous looks at the long lines of Alpha Jets in Europe. On the other side, in the East, the Soviet pilots were learning to fly the Czechoslovakian L-39 and couldn't help but wonder how their homeland had never designed anything similar. And in the meantime, Alpha Jets were conquering the world's niche of trainers and low-cost attack aircraft. The Northern King Battle Pass is in full swing, so it's a perfect time to check out the task list and share some tips on how to complete them with ease. We'll start with the first 7 challenges today and revisit the rest when we get close to the middle of the season. The first one is the Battle of the Hiddenings, where you need to destroy or help destroy enemy vehicles 250 times. It seems like a large number, but it's pretty simple to do in 3 weeks. Besides, there's no limit on vehicle class used. Just make sure it's rank 3 or above. The second challenge requires 7 frags on 3 types of vehicles: tanks, SPGs, and SPAA. The choice of tanks is super wide, so you can easily pick whatever you love. You can take anything from the American super light Hellcat that recently got an engine power buff to something super heavy, like the King Tiger. The latter's also a good way to train for the main reward of the Battle Pass. SPGs come in fewer numbers, but still enough to pick something enjoyable for everybody. How about some large caliber HE Slinger fun? Or if you want something new, the recent event reward is a nice pick: the PLZ-83-130. If you're not into glass cannons, take a look at SPGs with thick frontal armor. Now, the difficulty of the anti-air part of the challenge depends on both the vehicle and the game mode. Early SPAAGs have no auxiliary systems in realistic battles, so you'll need a bit of practice before you can reliably hit enemy aircraft. The best way to train is to play arcade, since it offers a lead marker that can help you get used to the ballistics of each cannon. Now, anti-tank SPAAGs are a whole other thing. They're much easier to use in markerless modes like realistic and simulator battles. Some Battle Pass challenges can be done in parallel since their dates overlap. For instance, task number 2 goes well with task number 3, Holmgang, where you need to finish a battle with at least a single frag. Keep in mind that you also need to keep your activity at least 70% high for a mission to count. You can also complete the 4th challenge at the same time, the one called Northern Fortitude. If you use a heavy tank or SPG while collecting frags for task number 2, you're very likely to collect some Adamant badges. You receive them for surviving more than 9 hits. The next challenge is Thor's Hammer. It requires you to hit targets with aircraft bombs of various masses, less than 130 kilograms, between 130 and 1,000 kilograms, and a ton or above. Make sure you check the physical mass of your munitions, because calibers are mostly a convenient reference point. We recommend you pick aircraft with a large payload for the first part of the task, preferably with a ballistic computer to make sure your bombs hit right. You shouldn't expect any trouble with medium and heavy bombs, since they're already popular and lots of planes have them. Task number 6, Odin's Retinue, requires you to receive 10,000 mission points in aircraft, ground, and naval battles. Keep in mind that points scored by aircraft in mixed battles are also valid. And the last challenge for today is Berserker's Rage, where you need to score 3 frags on a heavy tank without losing it, 10 times. The trick is that the counter isn't reset after the first 3 frags, which means you can complete this challenge in a single battle, provided you can score 12 frags in a single spawn. Well, we'll get back to the Battle Pass in a future episode. Meanwhile, it's time to answer some questions from the comments. The first question was sent by a player called Not So Bad. How How do you use the machine guns above the recoilless 106mm cannons on the M50 without using the cannons themselves? Hi, not so bad. If you want to use the ranging machine guns on the M50, you need to assign a key for firing secondary guns by going to Controls, Ground Vehicles, Weaponry. I4I1008 asks, what's better for the T-64A, 3BM15 or 3BM22? Hello, I4I. The 3BM15 offers a slight advantage against flat armor, but the 3BM22 is much better against sloped armor. We'd recommend going for the top shell. Another question comes from Metallic. How can the Lancia 3-row be properly used in a battle? Hey, Metallic. Vehicles like this one are best used in coordination with allies who can take a hit for you. Keep in the second line and help your team with destroying armored targets. British Thunder writes, what's the difference between the Tiger 2H and the Tiger 2 SLA-16? Hey there, Riley. The main difference of the premium version is a stronger diesel, which by the way is called the SLA-16. This version also has some extra tracks on the turret, giving it a slight protective bonus. And the last comment for today was written by Minipom. Is it possible to fully control an aircraft in the turret view without it correcting to the last mouse location? Hi, Minipom. It sure is possible. Go to Options, Main Parameters, Air Battle Settings, find Autopilot for Gunner and Bombsight modes, and set it to No. That's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. Subscribe and click the bell if you don't want to miss our next videos. Don't forget to unleash your inner Viking. Leave a like, share your thoughts and comments, and see you next week.